Let's be honest. Everyone in crypto is chasing the next big thing. But while retail speculators are busy flipping dog coins for quick pumps, the real battle for dominance is happening behind the scenes. And it's not about hype. It's about who's going to run the financial plumbing of the future. We're talking enterprise-grade, compliance-ready, utility-first networks. Two names dominate that conversation: XRP and HBAR. XRP, backed by Ripple Labs, is already embedded in central banks, cross-border payment corridors, and legacy finance infrastructure. It's fast, it's scalable, and most importantly, it's regulated in more jurisdictions than most cryptos even dream of. But then, there's HBAR, powered by the Hedera hash graph, backed by tech titans like Google, IBM, Boeing, and Standard Bank. It's not just another blockchain. It's a new kind of consensus model, and its governing council reads like the Fortune 500. So which one is going to win? Which one will be the backbone of CBDCs, tokenized assets, and institutional money flows? Will it be the OG compliance king XRP? Or the technological dark horse HBAR? This isn't just a coin comparison. It's a showdown between two different visions of the future. Subscribe to Be Crypto Smart if you want deep dives like this that go beyond the charts and actually explain what's really happening in crypto. Because once you understand how infrastructure works, you don't chase pumps, you front-run revolutions. Let's break it down. The rise of utility crypto, XRP and HBAR in the new financial era. If you want to predict the future of money, you need to follow the infrastructure, not the hype. Most people still think crypto is just about price swings and trading apps. But institutions, governments, and billion-dollar enterprises are not gambling on meme coins. They're quietly laying down the rails for a digitized financial system, and at the heart of those rails are tokens like XRP and HBAR. Let's zoom out for a second. We're entering an era where CBDCs, real-time gross settlement, tokenized securities, and automated compliance are no longer just theoretical. They're happening right now. The BIS has already mapped out a global model for interoperable CBDCs. Countries like Nigeria, China, and Brazil are testing or rolling out digital fiat currencies. JP Morgan, BlackRock, and HSBC are publicly supporting tokenization as the next evolution of capital markets. But there's a problem. Traditional banking rails were never designed for tokenized money. You can't run smart contracts or settlement layers on 40-year-old Swift infrastructure. That's where enterprise cryptos come in. The compliance-first liquidity layer. XRP was designed from day one to be a bridge asset, a neutral currency that can move value between banks, remittance providers, and payment networks with near-zero friction. Ripple's pitch to regulators has always been this: we're not replacing banks, we're upgrading them. And that strategy worked. RippleNet, Ripple's global payment network, is now used by over 300 financial institutions. Their on-demand liquidity, ODL, product allows partners to move money across borders without needing to pre-fund accounts in foreign currencies. In other words, XRP solves the Nostra Vostro problem, which ties up trillions of dollars globally. That's real utility. But HBAR is playing a completely different game. HBAR, the trust layer for the digital economy. Hedera isn't trying to replace Swift or compete head-to-head with Ripple in FX corridors. Instead, it's positioning itself as the trust layer of the internet, the digital infrastructure on which governments, enterprises, and apps can verify, tokenize, and transact with precision and speed. The Hedera hash graph is not a blockchain. It's a directed acyclic graph, DAG architecture that allows for thousands of transactions per second, finality in seconds, extremely low fees, and most importantly, enterprise-grade governance. HBAR powers tokenization, smart contracts, and digital identity, all under the oversight of a governing council made up of the world's most trusted corporations. From carbon credit marketplaces to CBDC pilots, HBAR is being quietly embedded into the next-gen web infrastructure. XRP is optimizing the flow of value between institutions, focusing on liquidity, compliance, and cross-border use cases. HBAR is optimizing the verification of data and tokenized assets, focusing on trust, governance, and programmable finance. The next financial system won't just need one of these, it might need both. But only one of them will become the dominant layer. Next, we're going deeper into the actual technology and consensus models that power XRP and HBAR. To understand who will power the next financial system, XRP or HBAR, you can't just look at partnerships. You have to look under the hood. Because at the core of each of these networks is a fundamentally different architecture and consensus model. And that affects everything from scalability to security, regulatory trust, and real-world utility. Let's break it down. XRP, federated consensus with speed and finality. Most people think Ripple's XRP ledger, XRPL, is just another blockchain. It's not. The XRPL uses a federated Byzantine agreement, FBA, consensus mechanism, which differs radically from Bitcoin's proof of work or Ethereum's proof of stake. Here's how it works. Instead of miners or stackers validating transactions, XRPL uses validators selected by a unique node list, UNL. These nodes must reach a supermajority agreement, typically 80%, on the order and validity of transactions. The result is immediate finality, no waiting for block confirmations. Once a transaction is validated, it's done. Period. This is critical in financial applications where settlement time matters. XRP can finalize transactions in 3 to 5 seconds, with fees less than a penny. But the real advantage: deterministic finality plus low latency equals institutional confidence. Ripple designed the XRPL to be compliant, audit-friendly, and stable. No forks, no surprises, just a trusted bridge asset that doesn't rely on energy-intensive mining. This is why banks and payment providers feel comfortable building on XRP. It's not decentralized in the maximalist sense, but that's the point. It's enterprise-ready decentralization, and that's exactly what institutions want. But what if we told you HBAR is even more advanced? HBAR, hashgraph, is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. HBAR runs on Hedera hashgraph, a fundamentally different consensus architecture that doesn't use blocks, miners, or validators. Instead, Hedera uses something called the gossip about gossip protocol combined with virtual voting. Here's how it works. Every node gossips with another random node, sharing the history of all known transactions. Over time, each node sees the same transaction history in a different order, but thanks to cryptographic timestamps, a consistent global order is agreed upon without the need for direct voting. The result is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, ABFT, one of the highest levels of security a distributed system can achieve. This means finality in 3 to 4 seconds, 10,000 plus transactions per second, made of layer, not layer 2. Stable and predictable low fees, we're talking fractions of a cent. Energy efficiency that blows XRP out of the water. And here's the kicker: Hedera doesn't fork. Ever. The data structure ensures consensus on order with mathematical certainty. What this means for institutions: let's be real, speed and scalability are non-negotiable if you're designing the infrastructure for central banks, capital markets, or cross-border commerce. XRP wins in liquidity provisioning and compliance-first design. HBAR wins in consensus elegance, scalability, and smart contract flexibility. But speed isn't enough. Institutions also need governance they can trust. HBAR has arguably the most elite governance model in crypto. 39 multinational corporations, including Google, IBM, LG, Dell, Boeing, Standard Bank, rotate seats on a term-limited, nonprofit council. Each gets exactly 1 vote. No whales, no collusion. Compare that with Ripple, which, while decentralized in terms of validators, still holds over 40 billion XRP in escrow, with Ripple Labs as the dominant player. Some argue this makes XRP centralized. Others argue it gives XRP the stability needed to meet the demands of the global banking system. Bottom line, HBAR is more advanced technically, but XRP is more mature in terms of regulation and finance-specific trust. All right, here's where the rubber meets the road. Because all the tech in the world means nothing if no one's actually using it. The real question is this: when you strip away the white papers and speculation, which of these two networks is getting embedded into the financial system right now? XRP or HBAR? Let's start with XRP. Ripple, the company behind XRP, has been playing the institutional game for over a decade. This isn't a hype project chasing retail pumps. This is a long game built on regulatory relationships, banking partnerships, and enterprise integration. RippleNet, Ripple's global payments network, is already live in more than 70 countries. And it's not a sandbox. It's being used by over 300 financial institutions around the world. We're talking about big names like Bank of America, Santander, SBI Holdings in Japan, PNC Bank, QNB in the Middle East, and Tranglo across Southeast Asia. And they're not just experimenting. They're moving real money, billions of dollars, using Ripple's on-demand liquidity system. That's where XRP comes in. Instead of holding pre-funded accounts in foreign currencies, institutions can use XRP as a bridge asset to instantly settle cross-border transactions. This eliminates the need for nostro-vostro accounts, freeing up massive amounts of trapped capital. It's a solution to a trillion-dollar problem, and it's already in motion. In fact, Ripple has already processed over $30 billion in volume through its liquidity platform, and that number's still climbing. But that's not all. Ripple is also in conversations with governments. In fact, they're already powering central bank digital currency pilots. The Central Bank of Bhutan is running a CBDC test on Ripple's tech. Palau is launching a national stablecoin on XRP infrastructure. Ripple's also a member of the Digital Pound Foundation in the UK. Quietly, methodically, Ripple is positioning XRP as the neutral liquidity layer behind the next generation of central bank money. Meanwhile, what's HBAR doing? Here's where it gets interesting. While Ripple is focusing on the financial plumbing, banks, cross-border payments, central banks, Hedera's playing a different game. It's not trying to be the next Swift. It's trying to be the trust layer of the digital economy. The Hedera network is governed by a council of some of the most powerful corporations on Earth. We're talking Google, IBM, LG, Boeing, Dell, Standard Bank, Nomura, UCL, and more. These aren't hype investors or random tech names. They are actively running the network and making governance decisions. Each gets one vote, no whales, no collusion, and they're not just sitting on a council. They're building on the tech, real-world applications, and not pilot tests, live production use cases that most of crypto hasn't even heard about. IBM and ServiceNow are using Hedera to streamline enterprise service data. Avery Dennison's Atma.io is tracking more than 22 billion physical items on Hedera to verify product authenticity, trace supply chains, and manage carbon emissions. That's 22 billion items already being tracked right now, on-chain, on HBAR. The Coupon Bureau, a U.S. national digital coupon system, is building its infrastructure on Hedera. We're talking retail giants using Hedera to stop coupon fraud across stores nationwide. Carbon credit platforms like Dovu and Suku are tokenizing emission data on Hedera. You want ESG compliance at scale? Hedera is already in the mix. Shinhan Bank in South Korea is building smart contract-powered FX remittance pilots with programmable finance on Hedera. And let's not forget Kenya's use of HBAR to track and certify sustainable development initiatives. This isn't theory. This is adoption. Quiet, industrial, real. So here's the real difference. XRP is solving financial liquidity, how to move value across borders, faster and cheaper with less friction. Ripple is doing that by embedding itself directly into financial institutions and governments. They're going straight for the money. HBAR is solving for trust and verifiability in a digitized world. Not just how money moves, but how data moves, how ownership is verified, how carbon is tracked, how supply chains are authenticated. It's a broader play, but it's no less serious. XRP is already entrenched in the financial system. HBAR is quietly being hardwired into the infrastructure of the future economy, enterprise systems, ESG markets, government pilots, and even smart retail. So who's closer to global adoption? If you define adoption as moving billions of dollars through regulated financial pipes, XRP wins hands down right now. It's in the banks. It's in the corridors. It's already used in real transactions across multiple regions, with regulatory clarity emerging in more and more jurisdictions. But if you define adoption as deep integration into government systems, corporate operations, sustainability infrastructure, and the programmable economy, HBAR is no slouch. It's forming the backbone of supply chains, compliance engines, and tokenized data flows that are becoming the default behind the scenes. Here's the bottom line. XRP is becoming the default for moving money. HBAR is becoming the default for proving truth. And the future of finance is going to need both liquidity and verification, speed and trust, compliance and programmability. But only one of them will end up everywhere. That's what we explore next when we dive into tokenomics, governance, and the real long-term value drivers of each token. Because partnerships are great, but when the institutional money finally floods in, you better believe they're going to ask, how much supply is locked? Who controls governance? And where is the long-term upside? Let's unpack that next. So we've broken down the tech. We've looked at real-world use cases. We've analyzed the tokenomics. We've unpacked the governance. Now comes the moment everyone's been waiting for. Which one is more likely to power the next generation global financial system, XRP or HBAR? Let's be clear. This isn't about tribalism. It's not XRP maxis versus HBAR maxis. It's about understanding which network is structurally better positioned to be embedded into the financial rails of the future. Because the stakes are massive. We're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar shift from legacy banking infrastructure to blockchain-based value networks. And the window to position yourself early is closing fast. XRP's position. XRP has a first-mover advantage in one very specific and highly valuable niche, cross-border finance. Ripple's laser focus on solving the liquidity problem has paid off. The traditional financial system relies on trillions of dollars trapped in pre-funded accounts. Nostro Vostro setups are expensive, outdated, and slow. Ripple's on-demand liquidity system flips that model. By using XRP as a bridge currency, it removes the need for pre-funding entirely. That frees up capital and slashes settlement time from days to seconds. That's not theory, it's happening now. Banks in Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and even parts of Africa are already using XRP for real transactions. RippleNet is a functioning alternative to SWIFT, and it's gaining ground. Even central banks are taking notice. Ripple has been quietly onboarding governments. The CBDC testbeds in Bhutan and Palau aren't minor headlines. They're early signs that XRP could become the liquidity layer for digital sovereign currencies. And now, with regulatory clarity emerging post-SEC lawsuit, Ripple is no longer fighting to exist, it's scaling. XRP is built for compliance, speed, and institutional adoption. It doesn't try to be everything. It wants to be the new layer of value transfer between financial institutions, central banks, and liquidity hubs. If the world's financial plumbing gets replaced, XRP is already in the blueprint. BAR's position. HBAR is playing a broader but equally powerful game. Instead of focusing just on money movement, Hedera is targeting the entire digital trust economy. And that might be even bigger. Here's why. The next version of the global financial system won't just be about moving money faster. It'll be about tracking everything: value, identity, ownership, emissions, carbon, assets, logistics, contracts. HBAR is the infrastructure for that. It's not just a coin. It's a governance-first, enterprise-grade DLT that's already supporting high-scale use cases at the corporate and government level. We're talking about 22+ billion items tracked by Avery Dennison, nationwide coupon fraud prevention, carbon credit marketplaces, tokenized FX settlement pilots in Asia, UN-aligned sustainability programs in Africa. BAR's strength isn't flashy. It's invisible adoption, quietly powering back-end systems that will underpin regulatory-compliant tokenization of everything. And here's the killer feature: the Hedera Council. While XRP has Ripple, one company with a strong but centralized influence, Hedera is run by a governing council of 39 global entities, each with equal voting rights. That governance model is institutionally bulletproof. Google, IBM, Boeing, Dell, Nomura, Standard Bank, these are not VCs waiting to dump on retail. These are infrastructure operators, network stakeholders, builders of the new economy. That level of trust, credibility, and decentralization is exactly what governments, banks, and enterprises are demanding. If the world's financial infrastructure becomes more data-centric, more tokenized, and more multi-asset by design, HBAR is the perfect fit. XRP versus HBAR, head-to-head summary. Let's quickly recap it side by side. Speed and finality, HBAR wins. Hedera Hashgraph processes thousands of transactions per second with finality in under 5 seconds. Liquidity and corridors, XRP wins. RippleNet and on-demand liquidity are already moving billions in real-world volume. Governance, HBAR wins, hands down. A globally distributed council of rotating corporate nodes versus one company controlling much of the ecosystem. Adoption by banks, XRP leads. Ripple is embedded in the traditional financial world and even in CBDC trials. Enterprise use cases, HBAR dominates. From ESG to supply chain to digital ID, HBAR is already in systems touching real users. Tokenomics, HBAR has more structured distribution, no inflation, and clear visibility. XRP has a longer track record, but centralized escrow still raises concerns. Regulatory clarity, XRP is now battle-tested post-SEC. That gives it a slight edge in the US, but Hedera was never considered a security to begin with. So, who's going to power the future? Here's the truth no one wants to admit. It might not be a winner-take-all, because XRP and HBAR are solving different pieces of the same puzzle. XRP is optimized for the movement of value across borders at high speed, with low cost and regulatory alignment. It's becoming the lubricant of institutional finance. HBAR is optimized for trust, data verification, and scalable infrastructure. It's becoming the operating system for tokenized economies, where identity, compliance, carbon, ownership, and money are all interlinked. If you're building a decentralized future that mirrors how the real world works, you'll probably need both. One moves the money, the other tracks the truth. The smart move? Don't choose just one. Understand the role each one plays, and position yourself before the rest of the world catches on. Because when the financial reset comes, it won't be about hype. It'll be about utility. And XRP and HBAR are two of the only tokens actually building real foundations. So while the world's distracted by memecoins and marketing gimmicks, you now know the truth. The future financial system is already being built, and the blueprint includes both XRP and HBAR. The question is, are you in early enough? If you found this breakdown valuable, don't just watch and scroll. Hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is where we decode the truth about crypto's future before it hits the mainstream. Drop a comment. Are you Team XRP, Team HBAR, or both? Let's spark the conversation in the comments below. And remember, be early, be informed, be crypto smart.